The galaxy is a very large place. Countless stars are home to an infinite variety of alien species, each with its own ways, its own morals, or lack thereof. Some species are kind, generous, and compassionate, while others are cunning, deceitful, and power-hungry. And then there are those that lie even further in the shadows, creatures so ruthless that most civilized beings whisper about them only in fear. While many of these species coexist under the governance of the Galactic Federation, a coalition dedicated to preserving peace and balance, the Federation's role is not as all-encompassing as one might hope. It does not interfere in every injustice or answer every cry for help. Only threats of the highest magnitude, ones that endanger the stability of entire star systems or cross intergalactic lines, warrant their intervention. And so, dark deeds fester in the corners of the galaxy, in places where cries for mercy go unanswered. On a small, unremarkable planet named Vorla, at the edge of a distant system, one such atrocity flourished. The native species, gentle beings known as the Aelorians, had long lived in peace on Vorla, attuned to its lush, vibrant landscapes. Known for their delicate, ethereal frames and deep attunement to nature, the Aelorians had existed in perfect balance with their world, cultivating a culture of harmony and respect for life. But that harmony had been shattered when an unyielding force known as the Drakari, a fearsome race of interstellar mercenaries with a reputation for ruthlessness, descended upon their world. Known for their towering physiques and stone-like skin, the Drakari were utterly devoid of compassion or remorse, driven solely by the pursuit of power and resources. They conquered Vorla with brutal efficiency, enslaving the peaceful Aelorians without hesitation. To the Drakari, the Aelorians were nothing more than tools. They forced them into labor, extracting the planet's resources, maintaining infrastructure, and toiling under harsh conditions. The enslaved Aelorians became the backbone of every industry. Forced into servitude with no hope of freedom, the Drakari, however, kept their military strictly within their own ranks. They viewed combat as a matter too important to entrust to anyone else, and so their mighty army remained a force of pure, brutal Drakari power. And so, on the planet Vorla, under the indifferent gaze of the Federation and hidden from the watchful eyes of civilized worlds, the Aelorians languished in silent agony, bound by the merciless grip of their Drakari conquerors. Vorla was one of the galaxy's rarest treasures, a planet whose core possessed an extraordinary ability to transform common minerals into verium, a precious resource essential to the production of anti-gravity drives. This unique property of Vorla made it a focal point of galactic interest, but it was also the planet's greatest curse. The Drakari, ruthless as ever, took full advantage of this, threatening to destroy the planet's core if any force attempted to liberate the enslaved Aelorians. They knew well that such a loss would shake the galaxy's technology and economy to its core, a gamble too costly for anyone to make. Vorla, though a rare and invaluable asset to the galaxy, was also unforgivingly inhospitable. Due to the unique properties of its core, the planet's atmosphere was harsh, and only a few isolated regions offered conditions suitable for life. As a result, the planet's population was sparse, with only a few million inhabitants scattered across its habitable zones. Of these, a mere 30% were Drakari, ruling over the majority Aelorian population with an iron grip. The Drakari structured life on Vorla to center around the extraction of verium. Most of the planet was left uninhabited or used as resource zones, vast stretches of wasteland with towering extraction rigs that scarred the land. Only a handful of settlements dotted the planet's habitable regions, tightly controlled by the Drakari and patrolled by their ruthless guards. The Drakari guarded Vorla fiercely, forbidding any outsider from setting foot on the planet. They traded verium through clandestine third parties, keeping their operations hidden from prying eyes. As such, no one interfered with Drakari rule, despite whispered outrage over the brutal oppression of the Aelorians. Then one fateful day, a small, battered ship streaked through Vorla's atmosphere and crash-landed on its surface. It was an unlikely vessel, carrying 5 unnamed humans who had clearly not intended to arrive on the planet. The Drakari immediately secured the crash site, surrounding the ship with armed patrols and closely examining these uninvited visitors. The humans, bruised and shaken, explained that they were mere traitors whose engines had malfunctioned mid-route, forcing them into a disastrous descent onto Vorla. The Drakari leader, however, saw this as an opportunity. Known for his brutal curiosity, he was fascinated by the sight of humans, a species he'd only heard about in distant reports. Against the advice of his council, he ordered that these humans be enslaved, ignoring their pleas and protests. His advisors, who knew well the stories of humanity's unpredictable nature, cautioned him. "Humans are bad news," one of them warned. "They are more clever than they appear. We should just fix their ship and send them back." But the leader scoffed, dismissing their warnings as unnecessary paranoia. He was eager to study them up close, to see what value they could bring as slaves. And so, the humans were shackled and taken away, entering the depths of Vorla as captives of a species infamous for showing no mercy. Yet as they were led away, the Drakari Council couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. The Drakari leader found himself increasingly taken by the human traders who had, by unfortunate circumstance, become his latest captives. Unlike the Aelorian natives, who often showed a subtle yet persistent resistance in their mannerisms, these humans displayed an almost unnerving efficiency. Every order, whether menial or taxing, was completed with a quiet determination. Tasks that typically took the Aelorians hours to finish were executed by the humans in half the time, and their precision bordered on mechanical perfection. They worked seamlessly in sync with one another, attentive to every command, even willing to tackle the planet's most grueling labor without complaint. The Leaders' Council watched this with growing concern. What he perceived as docility, they recognized as something else entirely, perhaps too much efficiency, too much cooperation. However, the Drakari leader dismissed their warnings, seeing instead the possibility of utilizing these humans to replace even more of the native workforce. He began to imagine a future where human labor might allow the Drakari to double production without the constant strain of subjugating Aelorian rebellions. Yet unknown to the Drakari, the humans were not at all as compliant as they appeared. Beneath their mask of obedience, they were biding their time, carefully observing every detail of the Drakari's operations. Every command, every tool, every access code they were exposed to was quietly logged in their minds. And as they carried out their daily tasks, they also began making subtle inquiries with certain Aelorians, slowly establishing an understanding of the power dynamics at play on Vorla. It was through these inquiries that the humans eventually encountered Banach Shil, the leader of the Aelorian resistance. Banach was a tall, scarred figure whose eyes spoke of decades of unyielding resilience and hardships. He had been leading a resistance against the Drakari for years, though with limited success. Lacking mastery over Drakari weapons and technology, the Aelorians had relied on makeshift tactics and primitive equipment that couldn't stand up to the Drakari's advanced firepower and organization. Every attempt to rebel had been met with swift, brutal suppression, and the Aelorian people were starting to lose hope. When Banach first met the humans, he regarded them with a blend of suspicion and intrigue. There was something unusual about their demeanor, a calm yet focused intensity that hinted at hidden strength. It was as though they were constantly analyzing, calculating. He shared with them the story of the Aelorian resistance, how they had fought tirelessly against the Drakari's oppression, only to be thwarted time and again due to their technological limitations. Banach's gaze was piercing as he gauged their reactions, silently assessing their potential. Seeing the opportunity to finally tip the scales, Banach cautiously asked if the humans would be willing to assist in the rebellion. It was a dangerous proposition. Joining the resistance would put their lives at constant risk and thrust them into the line of fire against a relentless foe. Yet he couldn't ignore the sense that these humans might just be the answer to their plight. The humans exchanged glances, a quiet understanding passing between them. They knew this would be no small task and understood the peril involved, but they also saw the desperate need of the Aelorian people, who suffered daily under Drakari rule. Finally, they turned back to Banach and nodded, offering a simple but resolute, "We'll help." The Aelorian leader's expression softened, a faint spark of hope igniting in his eyes, a glimmer he hadn't felt in years. With the humans now on their side, the resistance felt the stirring of new possibilities, a flicker of hope that, for the first time in decades, they might be able to mount a rebellion that could shake the Drakari's iron-fisted control. As the days wore on, Banach Shil and his Aelorian resistance began working closely with the humans, planning the uprising under the constant threat of Drakari surveillance. The resistance was a scattered force, worn down by years of brutal oppression, but the humans brought a spark of vitality and direction that the Aelorians had never experienced before. Together, they initiated their secret mission of gathering weapons, tools, and any equipment that could be used in the coming fight, careful to avoid arousing the Drakari's suspicions. As their collaboration deepened, Banach began to take a closer interest in each of the humans, noting that each one had specialized skills that complemented the others perfectly. Without explicitly asking them about it, he came to understand that these five weren't mere traders, but something far more capable. His suspicions deepened when he observed one of the humans, a quiet figure with a steady hand and keen eye, handling a Drakari rifle with remarkable familiarity. This human, whom Banach mentally nicknamed the weapons specialist, had an expert understanding of the weapon's functions, even modifying its settings with a skill that suggested years of experience. Another member of the group had an uncanny affinity for computers and electronic systems. Banach observed how this human, whom he dubbed the tech expert, managed to access Drakari data consoles and encrypt sensitive communications, all without triggering a single alert. His skills allowed them to intercept Drakari patrol schedules, keeping the resistance informed about potential threats and giving them a critical advantage in moving supplies across Vorla's hazardous terrain. The third human was equally exceptional, but in a more explosive manner, literally. This individual, whom Banach began calling the demolitions expert, displayed an instinctual understanding of Drakari mines, explosive charges, and other volatile devices scattered throughout the resource sites. He could not only disarm explosives, but also repurpose them, creating makeshift bombs that the resistance could deploy at key locations. His knowledge was extensive, and his enthusiasm for the task was undeniable. Among the five, there was also a human with a unique proficiency in medical treatment. This medic, as Banach called him, had quickly gained the trust of the Aelorian fighters, tending to wounds and ailments using Drakari supplies with surprising ingenuity. He showed them ways to maximize the effectiveness of limited resources and was quick to treat injuries that would otherwise have hindered their operations, a skill Banach knew would be invaluable when the fighting began in earnest. Finally, Banach observed the fifth human, whom he eventually recognized as the leader. This one, with a calm yet calculating gaze, had a natural sense of strategy. Banach saw how he coordinated the others, advising on tactics, sharing insights on the best times to move and hide their contraband, and setting out routes that minimized the risk of exposure. This human's knowledge of strategy was unmistakable, and he spoke with a confidence that reassured the Aelorians even in the darkest moments. The humans, for their part, were careful not to openly acknowledge their skills. Banach respected this and refrained from probing deeper, sensing that these were people with hidden pasts. Instead, he watched with growing admiration as they worked tirelessly, silently guiding his people. Each night, deep in the secluded caverns of Vorla, the humans held secret lessons with small groups of Aelorian fighters. They trained them in the intricacies of Drakari weaponry, teaching them how to handle the firearms, reload with precision, and take steady aim. The tech experts showed select members how to hack into Drakari communication channels, relaying encrypted messages without detection. The medics shared life-saving techniques with Aelorian healers, showing them ways to treat wounds with limited resources and how to administer Drakari medicine for maximum effectiveness. The demolitions expert taught small squads the delicate art of disarming and rearming explosives, demonstrating how even the Drakari's own devices could be turned against them. With each passing week, Banach could feel a tangible change within his people. They were no longer a broken force scattered in pockets across the wastelands. With the humans' guidance, they became a coordinated resistance, their skills sharpened and their resolve strengthened. Vorla had never known such unity, and for the first time in decades, Banach still felt a hope he had nearly forgotten. As the humans and Aelorians prepared in secret, whispers of revolution spread among the resistance ranks. The Drakari had grown complacent, confident in their brutal control over Vorla. But they were unaware of the storm gathering beneath their feet, an alliance between Aelorian resolve and human expertise that would soon rise to reclaim the planet. The campaign began quietly, with the resistance working in shadows. The humans, together with the Aelorian fighters, struck at night, targeting the Drakari outposts with the precision of seasoned operatives. Guided by the tech experts' hacking knowledge, they disabled alarms, intercepted communications, and cloaked each strike in a shroud of normalcy. One by one, the Drakari checkpoints went dark, their guards disappearing without a trace, and no alerts were raised to warn the other posts. The Drakari, entrenched in their confidence, saw nothing unusual as outpost after outpost was overtaken. The human leader had carefully orchestrated the entire plan, using strategy and patience to turn the Drakari's own systems against them. The Aelorian fighters advanced in silence, dismantling the Drakari's hold bit by bit, all without tipping off the main command centers. And as the weeks stretched on, the resistance continued its quiet expansion, occupying critical locations without sparking suspicion. Then came the signal for open rebellion. When enough outposts and strategic locations had fallen into their hands, the resistance launched their all-out assault. Explosions erupted across Vorla, one after another in rapid succession, lighting up the sky in bursts of fire and smoke. At first, the Drakari thought this was yet another uprising, easily quelled like those before. They watched the initial explosions from a distance, some even amused, confident that they'd crush this rebellion as they had countless others. But as the blast continued with deadly precision, tearing through vital infrastructures and shutting down communication channels across Vorla, it became clear that this was different. The demolitions experts' handiwork was meticulous, each explosive precisely placed to devastate critical Drakari systems in a single coordinated strike. Panic began to creep through the Drakari ranks as their defenses crumbled, and their once unshakable power faltered before their eyes. A disciplined resistance force surged forward, guided by the humans' strategic training. The Aelorians, now armed with Drakari weapons they wielded expertly, moved with a new level of precision and purpose. Each strike hit with unnerving accuracy. Each movement was sharp, coordinated, and tactical, far beyond anything the Drakari had expected from rebels. The Drakari forces scrambled to respond, only to face an organized, skilled opposition, behaving like a trained military force. For the first time, the Drakari were fighting an enemy whose skill and unity eclipsed anything they'd anticipated. The Drakari Council, watching from their high chamber, began to feel the weight of dread. The humans, the so-called traitors they'd enslaved and dismissed as weak, were behind it all. Their leaders' sharp gaze and each human's efficient role were no coincidence. It was a master plan, unfolding with ruthless precision. Alarm spread through the council as they realized how gravely they'd underestimated their inferior captives. But as they attempted to rally their forces, they found themselves locked in a losing battle. Their own weapons and systems were now in the hands of a united Aelorian resistance, strengthened by the ingenuity and training of the very humans they had once subjugated. With each passing hour, the Drakari's iron grip on Vorla slipped further away. For the first time in their history, the Drakari were no longer the oppressors, but the ones facing defeat, at the hands of those they deemed powerless, now proving the true strength of resilience and human strategy. Within days, the capital city of Vorla fell into the hands of the resistance. The Aelorians, supported by their human allies, stormed through the streets, and the Drakari rule, once unchallenged, was dismantled with stunning speed. The Drakari leader, Krelka Varesh, watched in disbelief as his empire crumbled around him. Enraged and desperate, Krelka retreated to his last weapon, a device hidden deep within the heart of the capital, designed to destabilize Vorla's core and bring verium production, and the planet itself, to a violent end. If he couldn't control Vorla, he would destroy it. The weapon required Krelka's own biosignature to activate, a safety measure that had been Krelka's assurance against any possible uprisings. As he burst into the chamber, his mind burning with vengeance, he was met with a surprise. Standing in the shadows before the console was none other than the human leader. "Ah, so you're here," Krelka sneered, sizing up the human. "I knew you were more than just a traitor. You were always too cunning, too organized." The human leader smirked, his gaze unwavering. "Guess you should have looked closer." Krelka growled, his pride stinging. He was a head taller than the human, with a physique built for combat. He was certain this fragile creature would be easy to crush, but the human's steady confidence unnerved him. "Fool!" Krelka spat, squaring up to the human. "Do you really think you can stop me coming here alone? I'll crush you, just like I've crushed every attempt at rebellion on this forsaken planet." Without another word, he lunged forward, his powerful limbs swinging with lethal force. But to Krelka's growing frustration, the human evaded each blow, moving with a speed and agility that seemed impossible. Strike after strike hit only empty air, the human weaving and sidestepping every move with almost practiced precision. Krelka's rage boiled over. He was used to being feared, not outmaneuvered by a mere human. Finally, as Krelka's energy waned, the human leader seized the moment. In a single fluid motion, he drew a combat knife and struck, driving it with precision into Krelka's vital point. The Drakari leader staggered, eyes wide with disbelief, feeling the strength leave him in an instant. "You humans," Krelka gasped, collapsing to his knees. "I should have listened." The human leader looked down at him, a flicker of triumph in his eyes. Too late for regrets. With a final exhale, Krelka Varesh, the once ruthless ruler of Vorla, fell. The human leader stepped back, watching as the last remnants of the Drakari tyranny came to an end. Knowing that Vorla was finally free, the remaining Drakari were swiftly driven off Vorla, their once mighty reign shattered. The Aelorians celebrated their newfound freedom, filling the streets with cheers, songs, and the renewed hope of a liberated world. Banik Shil, the leader of the Aelorian resistance, stepped forward to address the 5 humans who had been their allies and ultimately their saviors. With a voice filled with gratitude, he offered a heartfelt tribute, acknowledging that the names of these 5 brave souls would be immortalized in Aelorian history. Then turning to the human leader with an earnest gaze, he asked, "Who are you really?" The human leader replied with a steady smile, "We are humanity's top covert operatives, sent by our government in response to your years-long distress call for help. It was my plan to infiltrate your planet this way, and together we devised every step of this mission." He gestured to his team. "This is my team. Archer Hawk, our weapons master; Boris, our explosives expert; Jagger, the tech specialist; Orion, our combat medic; and finally me, their leader, Captain Jack Mason." The Aelorians listened in awe, understanding now that these were no ordinary allies but highly trained operatives with unparalleled skills. With this, Bannock swore that Vorla will always stand as an ally to your people. Bannock began, his voice thick with emotion. "We will forever be in humanity's debt." And from that day on, the names of Captain Jack Mason and his team were honored across Vorla as legends, their courage a beacon for generations to come.